Hi, Coffee. How are you? Oof, my OBS is looking a little rough right now. Hello, everyone. I'm just making a tweet to make sure that the people know we're live. Our fans want to know, what are you up to? Well, we're streaming. We're vibing. Alright. First, you were here first. We love to see it. Alright. I need to figure out my thing. Why is this not working? Oh my god, guys. I am throwing today. I had so much going on and I just lost track of time too. I'm so excited because our Overwatch Coven team is in a tournament right now. And they're doing good. They, I believe they lost the first two maps, but they put up a really good fight. It was really close, that first match. Second match was a little rough, but hopefully they'll be able to pull through this next round. But yeah, hello, if you guys are new here, what's up? My name is Morbid Mind. You can call me Morbid or Morbs. I'm the CEO here at Xzile Esports. And today we're going to be talking about culture and mental health. I'm really excited to sit down and talk to Rohit about this. Rohit is one of our content creators. So yeah, let's get into the chats. What did this one. Wee-hoo. Okay. Let me undeafen. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I am very full. I had a lot of food for dinner, which I don't normally. So.
What'd you eat?
I had some rice, some bread, and some yogurt. Cause I'm not hitting my calorie limits. I've started eating very little, which I'm trying to now undo.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Yes.
I'm sure you'll get used to it.
Will do. It's the winter arc, you know. We gotta eat well, train well, sleep well, you know.
Winter arc. Okay.
Yeah. It's
like,
the winter time is supposedly the winter arc now.
Oh, winter. I thought you said winter.
Yeah. The winter. Oh, I mean, it could be that
Both?
too. We'll see.
That's good.
We'll see about it.
While Rohit's being healthy and taking care of himself, you know, I'm just going downhill over here, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I've had one of those, like, I was telling Flutter earlier, I was talking to her, and I was just saying, when I get busy, it's like, I do so much in the span of, like, 5 hours. Like, I do it to myself, though. Like, I work on 5 different things at the same time, and I get it all done. I get it all done super fast, and then after that, I'm, like, dead for, like, 14 hours.
Ooh.
And so, yeah.
Just like the instant burnout.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then once I wake up and it's been a couple hours, I'm like, okay, back at it, like doing everything I need to do in a very short amount of time. So yeah, I did eat, and now I'm drinking coffee. So.
Gotcha. Do you prefer that? Do you prefer sort of like putting your day's productivity into like a smaller amount of time and then resting for the larger part of the day, or is that just not by preference? Is it just kind of how it is?
It's kind of how it is right now, but I would say like, yeah, I guess I've always kind of been like that. I'll do a lot in like a couple of hours and then just rest for the rest. and typically at night. Like, I get so much done at night.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard when I had like a full-time traditional job, like a 8 to 5, and I felt like the first like 4 hours of my job I was doing nothing. And then like I would work after lunch. Basically, I would work a lot and get almost everything done, and then I would go home, eat something, and then work for like another 2 hours and get everything done. But like those first 4 hours in the morning, like it was torture for me to sit there and try to do something.
Honestly, like I work like a, I guess, traditional job, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and it's pretty much like that for me as well, except all my productive stuff happens in the morning, and then the afternoon I'm just like, all right, I got to sit through these calls and just try not to fall asleep.
Okay, so next time you check in for me in the morning, and I'll check in for you in the afternoon.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know what you do, but I'll figure it out, okay? But yeah, no. Well, I'm super excited that we get to sit and chat for a while again. It was so funny because I was like, oh, this is awesome, I get a second podcast with Rohit, whatever, and I'm like, wait, the first one wasn't a podcast.
Right. Unless Overwatch is now philosophical.
I
you
mean,
never know.
It could
the way
be.
of life to some.
It is, for sure. But yeah, I was like, oh my god, it wasn't even a podcast. We were supposed to play Valorant, and then that didn't really work out for me, and then we played Overwatch. So yes. I'm like, that's funny. I have a feeling we might be here for a while. We have a lot of questions that I wrote up.
Oh yeah.
I was super excited because I guess some background for our streams. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Morbid Mind, the CEO here at Xzile Esports. But previously, when I was talking about my traditional career, I was a school psychologist, so I worked with children. I did a bunch of testing to identify if children had disabilities where they could get services within special education. And then I wrote up plans on how to help them in their education. So it's very specific and tailored more towards children and the education system and how to make sure children can be successful in education, no matter what their disabilities may be. But, you know, I had a lot of burnout with that, especially after COVID. There was a lot of things that were piling up that didn't get done in that year. And then also, not to get too super into like my beliefs and stuff, but just I live in Texas, and the laws that Texas kind of goes by are not things that I find very ethical sometimes. So it was this constant like struggle in my head between what's legal and what's ethical for my patient. So it was
a very tough line to walk.
Oh yeah. And I'm also the type of person who just like carries stuff with them. I'm very empathetic, and so I carry a lot of things with me, and it's very difficult for me to let go. So it just wasn't very healthy for me to continue in that in that path that I was in. So I had to make a decision, and since then, you know, I've been doing stuff with the org, doing a lot of esports things, which I also love doing. But I miss being able to sit down and talk about mental health and talk about some more like deeper conversations when it comes to mental health, and culture within mental health is also huge, and not something I get to talk about as much. When I was in school psychology, I lived in Houston, which, if you don't know, Houston's very much so like a melting pot is what they call it. So there's people from all sorts of cultures that are there. You can walk into a Starbucks and hear like 5 different languages being spoken.
Wow.
And it's just like so rich in diversity. And I loved that so much. I loved being able to like learn about other cultures, just trying to experience other people's like way of life is so really fun and interesting to me. So when we're mixing those two conversations, at least when we're the bit that I could listen to while we're playing Overwatch,
Yeah.
I was
the part
like,
that wasn't drowned out by the Pharah ult.
yeah.
Yep.
When I wasn't fighting for my life,
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed hearing like pieces of what you were kind of giving me, and I was like, oh yeah, we gotta sit down and talk more for sure.
Right.
So
Definitely.
I'm glad we're here. I do want to preface the conversation a little bit for both our streams. Anyone can ask, whatever they would want in chat. If I'm seeing that the conversation or the comment is somewhat personal, then I probably won't read your name out loud. And Ro, you can do the same with your chat. Just because we do upload these to YouTube, so I don't want to, air your business out onto YouTube as well.
For sure.
So I'll read your questions, but I might not shout out specifically who you are or what you're asking. And then also just remember, this is supposed to be a safe space, so anything we do talk about or do share, I hope that you keep between us and we all, have this little bond together, this experience. And everything we talk about is for educational purposes as well. So there will likely be conversations about like religion or spirituality, and we're not here to get into any kind of debate on what we think is real or not real, or believe in or don't believe in. We're here to just explain our experiences within our culture and mental health, and a lot to do with our culture, or at least I know specifically mine for sure, is religion. So we will be talking about some of those topics, but we're not here to debate anything, just kind of talk about our experiences and how our culture has, either affected us or just the culture in general, and mental health. So just to preface
For
that.
sure. And do we have any like trigger warnings, anything like that? Or is everything open like for game, or should I stay off certain?
I think everything's open for fair game. I guess just anyone who's listening know that like we are talking about mental health, so the conversation may get very deep and could lead to, topics that may be triggering for you. So just be aware. We appreciate your support, and we understand that if there's points of the podcast that get too emotional for you, that you have to click off and, go take care of yourself. So, yeah. I think we're good. So what why don't you tell me a little bit about like your cultural background and your cultural like lineage?
For sure. So you pulled up 2 like great words that I feel like a lot of people might conflate with culture, right? It's religion and spirituality and culture tend to get mixed up into the same bucket sometimes.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe just trying to pick the difference apart, especially in like my culture, which is of the Indian subcontinent, Southern Asian region, is we have religion, which has to do with belief and disbelief and faith. We have culture, which is like, again, this is just the way I've sort of divided it, but let me know if you think there's like a better way I could think through this. But maybe culture is like the sort of way we live out every single day, certain practices or certain, reasons behind doing things. And then maybe spirituality is about like a quest for meaning or quest for something higher.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I like that.
Yeah. Cool. So,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, I was just saying, yeah, in terms of culture, like, I'm basically, we call the official name for the culture is a beautiful Sanskrit word. It's Sanatana Dharma, and Sanatana means eternal, and Dharma means way.
Okay.
So
That's beautiful.
it's yeah, it's basically just because this culture has been one of the world's oldest. You know, different accounts dated from 30,000 years old to 60,000 years old, and even older than that. So it's just, you know, hard to put an exact mark on it. They just call it eternal and got away with it. But
Love that.
yeah, but it's basically like, you know, I guess we could go more into detail on that in a bit. But that's kind of the name of the culture.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's important to like distinguish sometimes, at least for me personally, like um where you grew up as well, I guess. Because I consider myself Mexican American. But there's this weird, like, I want to say, like, I am definitely more, I don't know if this is offensive, like, whitewashed, I guess. And the reason is, I grew up in a border town. So I live in the border of Texas and Mexico. And previously, though, like, my lineage, or like where my family comes from, they've always resided in this area, but at one point this area was Mexico. So the Texas border, like the American border, crossed us. We didn't cross it, kind of
Gotcha.
thing. So, you know, I am Mexican, I am Latina, but I feel very much so like one foot in, one foot out, if that makes sense. One foot in America, one foot in Mexico. And even now, the place I grew up in is now where I live again. And my parents have never left, and a lot of my family's still here and stuff. So it's like part of me constantly feels like I don't really belong here and I don't really belong there either. So I wouldn't say I grew up with too much of my traditional, like, cultural practices of, like, the Mexican, like, heritage, because at one point in my parents' and grandparents' life, they were, like, reprimanded for that, you know, would get hit for speaking Spanish, would get made fun of for, you know, wearing any type of more, like, traditional clothes. So a lot of that kind of washed away with generations. So really, I feel like culture-wise, I started learning more when I actually moved away, which is funny.
I've heard that happening quite a bit, because that's when you're like curious by your own nature, right? You're not like given stuff from your parents. You're like actually trying to find the sense of identity for yourself, right?
Yep. And just like connecting with other people, and, you know, like I said, when I moved to Houston, it's just like I'm hearing and learning about all these cultures, and I'm just there like a freaking bump on a log, like, yeah, we like rice and beans, like, I don't know. You know what?
No way, we got that too.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what, you know, I felt very much like, damn, I don't know anything about my history. And so, yeah, some of these conversations, I will say, like, kind of are iffy, with, like, being so true to, like, the culture itself, and more so of, like, okay, well, I'm a person who grew up half in, half out kind of thing.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, maybe, like, like I don't know if this is maybe something in your experience, but the silver lining, as someone who's also kind of gone around India and America for a lot of my life, the silver lining is I'm kind of an outsider to both, and I can reason through and choose what makes sense, right? Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
No, and it has its own, like, there's, like, beauty to both, I guess, and also kind of makes you appreciate both lives and both cultures in a way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, you brought up, like, this really, like, this is another thing, I guess, that ties to culture is the physical land or the geographical location, right? Would you say that you're sort of, even though you mentioned, like, with time and with how your generation was, across generations, you guys were treated differently, you might have, you called it whitewashed, right?
Yep.
But would you still say, like, you're very tied to the physical location and the geographical location as part of your sense of culture?
Yes, I would. It's funny too because even with, so like I said, I live in Texas and Texas is huge. But even within, like, people within Texas who know the area and at least have traveled around in Texas could even tell you, like, the region I grew up in, they call the Valley, and some people will even distinguish between, like, you're Mexican or, like, you're from the Valley, and they know the difference. Because of our lingo, and a lot of the times we speak a lot of, like, broken English and broken Spanish because we speak both English and Spanish, and somewhere along the line it became Spanglish. So that's, like, a thing too. Even now, it's so funny. There's a word that I don't ever say because I always fuck it up, and no matter how much people have tried to get me to, like, fix it, I still mess it up. But sandwich, I say sandwich.
Sandwich.
And
gotcha.
That's
the first I'm hearing that.
Yep, it's not the word whatsoever.
It sounds cool though. Maybe I'll pick it up and maybe we just make it a thing.
No. And I get corrected all the time, especially obviously, like, gaming, right? We talk to people from all over, and so at least some of my closer friends have picked up on that, and so it's like I usually will never just say the word anymore because I get so embarrassed, but I realized it's very much so a Valley thing, like this
hey, but it's unique,
area.
It's colorful. Like, it gets boring hearing sandwich all the time. Sometimes it's the day for a sandwich.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would say yes, I love the culture here and the people here, and, like, we'll get into it more so, like, when we're talking about our some other topics on, like, the questions we have. But yeah, no, I love the area.
Very cool.
Yeah, what about you? Do you feel like there's any, like, tie to, like, a physical location or, like, land?
The way I was raised, yes, kind of like the sense of patriotism and all that was a huge part of the household, and even schools, you'd have to sing, like, the national anthem and stuff like that. So I have a huge amount of respect for people of my country, but I don't think culture and country need to be exactly 100% the same, right?
Yeah.
Because, well, from an outsider's perspective, on the surface, when you say India, you think, what, butter paneer and call centers and Bollywood, right? Like,
not the call centers.
it's true and it's funny, but like, on the surface, that's what it seems like. But
Mm-hmm.
this boundary that we call India today has only existed for about 70 years, which is nothing compared to the 30 to 60,000 year history of archaeology unearthed, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, like, if we're putting like a line in the sand and calling that culture, like, I just never found it reasonable after I gained my own sense of like critical thinking.
Yeah. Got it. Um,
Yeah.
let's see. So, I guess what kind of brought you said you grew up a little bit of there and a little bit of here. Like what brought you all here to the US?
Yeah. Mainly it's like the way education has become in India tends to be really like mass production where you don't have enough focus on like each individual kid. And so it's pretty rough for someone who's trying to reason his way through things.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my parents decided that my brother and I should get some like end up in some place with much more individual focus. And so we moved kind of to the US along with dad's job, which kind of lined up, and then moved back because his job took him back there, and then we came back here for college. So this is where I did my undergraduate for exactly that reason. It's more critical thinking, more individual focus as opposed to like the mass education that just comes with like a huge population.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's bright spots there too. There's definitely great institutions there, but the
Mhm.
teaching style like that we had gotten here as kids kind of just made more sense to study it for college.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we didn't my at least as far as I can go back, my family's always been here, at least from my mom's side. My dad's side did grow up primarily in Mexico, like deeper into Mexico, and when he was younger, his mom decided to take 6 kids and cross the border and go into a place that she didn't know really much people or know much English and try
It's quite the
to
leap of faith.
try to provide a better life for them. And unfortunately she passed away from breast cancer pretty young, soon after that.
Sorry.
And thank you. I unfortunately did not get to know her, but so he was kind of raised by his brothers and sisters because my dad was the youngest. So they've been here. He came when he was 5, but because they had to figure out, feeding themselves, he did a lot of traveling of like working on fields, and kind of school was a little bit more on the back burner, and more so like, okay, go get a job, you have to work. Both him and my mom were worked in the fields since they were 6, 7. So they've
When
always...
you say fields, like what kinds of plants or like what kinds of crops?
My
talking
dad my dad did anything, but he likes to talk about the potatoes.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Nice.
Yep, he said when he first, what is that? Idaho potatoes, the really big ones.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Oh, they're huge. He was like,
let me look this up.
he's like, I remember getting like those first potatoes and being like, what the heck?
Yeah.
This is crazy. So
Those are huge. What the heck?
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Uh-huh. So he did that. I mean, he would do anything, like he had to. So anyone who would pick him up and take him, he would go and do. My mom, on the other hand, was definitely a little bit better off in the sense of she worked mostly like whether it be like selling sodas to the people who were working in the fields, like she would sell drinks or food that like my grandma made or that other ladies made, and then she did like payroll um, for the workers. Her dad was had a higher position for like the cornfields here in our area, and so she still had to work, but she didn't have to actually like pick anything. So
Gotcha.
yeah. But my dad did pick a lot. So yeah, they
both sound like very hard workers.
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they nothing necessarily brought me here. I was always here. But they definitely also had that idea of a better education, a safer place as well, because where my dad grew up, it was very dangerous, and that's part of like why they left. There's a lot of like cartel issues where they were at, and it was not safe to raise a family. So
sure, yeah.
There was also a lot of that played into them moving here. But yeah, education and safety, pretty much.
Gotcha.
Do
you ever go back, like, to Mexico, to where your dad's from, or have you just kind of never been?
We used to. We used to go a lot, cause I'm about a 10-12 minute drive to Mexico, just across the border, and then where he grew up was another maybe like 20-30 minutes from there, so very close. And we used to cross the border a lot, so we would go, like, let's just say right now we were like, oh, we're hungry, we want some street tacos, like, let's go over there, you know.
Wow.
So we would just go
hop countries and be right back.
Yep. We would just go and come as we felt, free to. I would say until I was like maybe 8 or 9. I also had margaritas over there, like
wow.
If we wanted pedicures, we'd go over there, get them for like, $5, like everything's cheaper. People would go and buy alcohol and come back, and it's so much cheaper.
What about like haircuts and stuff like that too?
I don't think I ever got a haircut over there, but I'm sure you could.
Gotcha. Just asking for a friend.
Yeah. But I would say around like maybe when I was 8 or 10, and to preface, I'm 30 now, so long time ago.
Gotcha.
We stopped going because of the cartel issues got so much worse, and the government and like the police were very corrupt, so it became dangerous, especially because people there could tell we were not local. And I'm not fluent in Spanish, and neither really is my mom. Like, she is, but it does take her a little while to process like what she's gonna say or what you're saying to her. So it became kind of dangerous for us to go. I vividly remember, like, the last time we went, when we were coming back, they had tanks pointed at us while they were asking us questions about like where we live, where we're coming from, like what city we're in, and like asking detailed questions about our life. And so we were just like, my mom was like, we're not going back if it's not safe, it's not worth it.
Like, talk about answering at gunpoint. You're at tank point.
Yeah.
It's traumatic.
Yes. So we haven't we haven't gone back. At least my mom and I haven't gone back since. My dad will go occasionally, but again, like, he is very much so like a local. Will pass by as a local, you know. So, still has family there, so he will go. But we don't go, and we worry every time he does.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What about you? Do you go visit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I graduated 2 years ago, and before that, I was in India for high school. Before that, I was here for elementary and a bit of middle school as well. But
Okay.
I've always been kind of going back and forth every few years. But now that I'm like working, I have to stay here and then visit every few months to like every year or so. But it's we Asgard is a people.
Yeah.
We've definitely brought a lot of like the food, the some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, like the spirituality and all that with us, and like it's a part of my daily life. And I don't really miss India, but I do miss like my family there, and sometimes like the places, like the temples and stuff, they're just super unique. You can't really get that here because they've had centuries to build it there.
Agreed. And I'm sure the atmosphere and everything of like being around people who understand and see life more through a similar eyes is also something you can't really replicate.
Yes, and you'll find that like in India specifically, you'll find that more in like rural areas, where people aren't quite so messed up by city life and by modern trends or whatever. Like they just look at things the way they are, and they don't like have a lot of memory or intellect to boast about. They just observe very keenly. So I feel like their sense of life might actually be better than most scientists' sense of life, because scientists have to look at everything through like a microscope or telescope or whatever, but these guys just looked at the stars since they were born, right?
Yeah.
So
wow. I don't even know if we got to this, but I guess what was it like growing up within your culture?
growing up, again, it's that sort of until teenage, I never really developed my own sense of critical thinking. So I always kind of just did what they said was good or bad, whatever those words mean now. Yeah. But it's like, one thing is we're culturally part of this division called Brahmins. Brahmins are essentially like the priest class. That's another thing I've grown to hate, is the class system. But
okay.
The priest class is, by occupation, they are the ones conducting rituals and whatever in temples, and then they don't eat meat, and they're responsible for like educating people and stuff like that. And then you have warriors, and you have like businessmen, and then you have like physical laborers. All these are different classes of the Indian society as of the last maybe several thousand years. Not as old as the culture, but definitely more recent.
Wow, so that's really interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of a big part of being Brahmin is just being told to believe in this god, that god, say this to get this, do this to get that, and never really having a chance to question things. And a lot of people are fine with not questioning things, and it gives them a lot of peace. But me personally, when it feels like I'm being told what the answer is without having a chance to ask, I kind of just put that under religion. Whereas if I get the chance to ask and then arrive at an answer, like I feel like that's sort of spirituality, which is where I've gravitated towards since I was I was part of that side of the culture, and then I've moved to this side of the culture with time.
I love that. I feel like that's really beautiful too, as like a similar concept of with my Mexican culture, I would say majority of people are Catholic and have that religion really tied into our culture. And that same idea of, if I'm going through a certain thing, then I'm praying to this certain saint, or I'm asking this certain saint to help me with this because of whatever. And interesting enough, that's another reason why I feel a little bit disconnected from my culture, because I didn't grow up in the Catholic religion. At a younger age, my mom's older brother decided to attend a Lutheran church and a Lutheran school because it was a better education for him. Back then, when they were growing up here, they were segregated. So they had the white school and the Mexican school. And it was America, it was Texas, but you weren't allowed to go to that school because you were brown. And so much so, like, they didn't have a cafeteria, like, they didn't have a gym. When they were going to get lunch, they had to walk to the white school, get their lunch, and walk back.
Oof.
So they were very, like, separated. And someone had just moved here and started a Lutheran school where they were allowing anyone and everyone to come and get a better education and also even fast track their education. So he decided to go there and got to finish school a lot sooner and got to go to college because of that, and got things, you know, helped and paid for as well. So he moved there and changed his religion to Lutheranism, and in results,
is that like another division within Christianity, like Catholicism and then Lutheranism?
Yeah, so it is part of Christianity. There's the Catholic religion, and Luther was actually, I don't know exactly what they were called, but let's say like the equivalent of like a pastor or priest in the Catholic Church. And he started to notice things that he did not agree with that the Catholic religion was doing versus like what the Bible says. So he created a document and he posted it on the like Catholic Church, and said these are things that I, you know, think need to change. I forgot, it was like a list of I don't know how many things. And instead
he
of
like nailed it to the door of the church.
Yeah.
I think I remember this from 6th grade. Yeah. Okay.
It's
Now
history.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And so instead of the Catholic Church just changing some things or like considering him, so they ended up making a whole nother religion. So Luther. Yeah, I'm Lutheran. I grew up in the Lutheran Church because of that. And so that's also where part of my like culture feels like a little bit of a disconnect, because I didn't grow up in a Catholic church. I know about the Catholic religion and I know all of that because there's still so much of my family that is Catholic. So there's like a lot of traditions and stuff, especially with like funerals and like, you know, people passing, that those traditions are still a part of my life by proxy, but they're not things that I necessarily practice. I've just, you know, been a part of them to respect the people that were just
as a witness, at least, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with like the whole growing up, you know, obviously like you're listening to what your parents tell you and what they believe in. But I also grew up in a household where one parent was very religious and the other one wasn't. So there was also a lot of like disconnect of like, okay, well, I have to do this, but dad's over there like sitting on the couch, you know, drinking a beer. What do you mean? Why doesn't he have to go?
Right.
Not to call you out, Dad, but
Gotcha.
You know, so it was like, I think at a younger age, I started questioning things
Mm-hmm.
and not understanding why we had to do certain stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but intellectually, I don't think I was able to really understand or make a change for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of went with emotions until I think even older than you were, of uh, you know, I didn't really understand what was happening. I think part of it, again, with mental health,
Mm-hmm.
uh, tying a little bit into that, to say, like, I've always struggled with depression, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had major depressive disorder since I was probably a freshman in high school. Um,
Gotcha.
so I think that also plays into um, what it was like growing up in the church, because
Mm-hmm.
at least with us, you know, you're being told, you know, if you do these bad things, you're going to hell. If you do good things, you go to heaven. You have to
Mm-hmm.
repent. Well, my mind constantly told me I was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard for me to look at religion or faith or spirituality, even, and think that there was a place for me, because growing up,
Right.
I always told myself, no, there's something wrong with you. You're not worthy of anything. Like, why would a god or a higher being even be interested or care about someone
Mm-hmm.
like you? So it kind of messed with my idea of like faith and stuff. So
Sure.
growing
Yeah.
yeah, growing up, it was, I think it might have been a little bit worse for me to be in a place like that, but at the same time, I'm glad that I ended up growing up in a Lutheran church versus a Catholic one, because I do feel like the Catholic uh, church is way more rigid.
Kind
Um,
of echoes the original reason why Lutheranism began, right?
yep, yeah, yeah. Um, and so yeah, I growing up like in the culture, I would say, again, like I said, and you'll hear it multiple times while we're talking, like very much so, one foot in, one foot out of,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Gotcha.
but are there any traditions or celebrations or spiritual practices that you participate in, or maybe you did and now you don't so much anymore?
I still very much do. There was a point when I was absolutely depressed the heck out of my head. I didn't want to get up in the morning, get out of bed, nothing. But um, I've started, to notice like there's beauty in adding color to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely did get back into celebrating a lot of these things. But on the again, on the surface, these are just stories told by people, and then the whole country celebrates it. But there tends to be a deeper significance. Um, there's, Diwali is like the first one that tends to come to mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the festival of lights. Um, you have all these little, the little lamps are called diyas, and they just have like this little oil thing in a wick, and you decorate your house with like tens of them. They have temples with hundreds of them, maybe thousands, and it's a celebration of when one of India's ancient kings returned home from exile.
Wow.
So, like again, I'm not super good with the lore, like
Mm-hmm.
all of it, but yeah. So that's kind of the significance of Diwali or Deepavali. Deepa is lamp, but it's that's like a big one, and then one that's coming up is Dasara, which is sort of this victory between this goddess and a demon. The goddess fought the demon for 10 days, one on the 10th day.
Wow.
So the celebration for that is starting in 2 days, which is actually my lunar birthday. So I was
Nice.
born on the first day of darkness. Make
Oh.
of that what you will.
I don't
But
know. It kind of sounds
yeah,
like a W.
I mean, if I was an edgy middle schooler, like I definitely parade that around.
Yeah, I never grew out of that phase, Mom. Sorry.
It's a lifestyle.
Yup.
I got your picture. Anyway, um, yeah. So like those are two major ones, and then you have one in springtime called Holi. Holi is the festival of colors, where you kind of just, you know, you literally get buckets of dyes and you throw them at each other and just celebrate springtime and life and, you know, like new beginnings for the year.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
yeah. So a lot of like very simple
you,
surface level
Yoshi.
reasons for like
Appreciate
these
you.
good and bad things, but that's what I was told growing up as a kid, as a Brahmin Hindu kid. But then when I started actually questioning and poking deeper over the years, what I sort of learned is that it's really, really connected with the cycles of the sun and the moon.
Okay.
And the sun and the moon are the two celestial bodies that have the most impact on human biology, aside from Earth itself. Because, you know, the moon's responsible for the tides and the sun is responsible for, it is the energy source in our solar system, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, our physiologies change differently at different points in the month and different points in the year, as well as every 12.5 years, there's a physiological like sort of rhythm in accordance with the phases of the sun. So these are all things you don't get told as a kid, but you have to go poke at and find out, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of tends to be the deeper significance for a lot of the festivals. There's a million minor ones I've left out, but yeah, huge ties to like the impact on the human system when you do certain things with respect to certain phases of the moon and, you know, cycles of the sun.
Yeah, man. That's so beautiful. And like you said, like, you know, you grow up and like they give us the like the children book version
Yeah. Yep.
of it, and then you grow up and it is great that, you know, we get to ask these questions and learn more. And again, I think that's part of like the beauty of being where we're at now, and being able to ask these kinds of things with it, and like being like celebrated too for it, versus if we were more so in like our, you know, what would the word be, like native land, we would be
a witch.
yeah, not so safe for asking those kinds of things. So yeah, again, a tie back to, you know, we love our culture and our background, but we are definitely in a great place of being able to like understand more and figure out what we resonate more with.
Yeah, and so like the thing, at least from the Indian culture perspective, asking these questions for the many thousands of years before like the last couple centuries, it was encouraged, and it had been the only way was to find your own way. But kind of what's happened through a lot of invasions, a lot of burning of our knowledge repositories, and a lot of like, you know, mixing of external invader influence and stuff like that, we've sort of gotten into this, you know, do as you're told, society structured like this by class. This is better, this is worse, you know, very divisive ways of thinking.
Yeah.
But the core of Indian culture has, you know, historically and for the large part of its lifespan, it has been to question things and not just accept it.
Yeah, I love that. I think tying a little bit back to like the Catholic Lutheran side of things, definitely felt that within like religion of it's okay to ask questions. Like, you should ask questions. You should wonder.
You're saying within Lutheranism, like
Yes.
that's like a more highly encouraged thing compared to Catholicism?
Yes. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Very nice.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, like, traditions, I'll talk about like one specifically that I didn't actually practice growing up. Was Dia de los Muertos, so Day of the Dead.
I've heard of that, yes.
Yep. If you've seen the Disney movie, what is it, Coco?
I have.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful movie. I love it so much.
It is. So it's a lot of like ties to that, but like growing up, we did not, in my household, we didn't celebrate that. And again, I think it ties back to this idea of well, I'm American, I'm not Mexican. And not to like call anyone out, although I don't think my mom would really care too much. But she, you know, to be fair, like I said earlier, she was very much so in that time period where they were disciplined for speaking Spanish, and very much so got to see what the white school looked like versus the Mexican school. And so with her upbringing in that environment, like, I don't blame her for being more whitewashed. I don't know how to say like to say it better. But, and I apologize if that's offensive to anybody, but more Americanized, I guess, could be a more proper word. But I don't blame her for that. It makes me sad that I didn't get to experience that when I was younger. Because again, like, I've always been fascinated with mental health and mostly trying to understand myself. But with that came just so much curiosity of like the human behavior and the human experience, and death and dying is a huge part of our life. So and my mom was very much like, I think my mom raised me a little bit more like a friend as well.
That's sweet.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
But she wanted to expose me to life, and she's very blunt, and so she didn't really like sugarcoat anything. So like, I was attending funerals since I could remember, like young, and she would make me go and walk up to the casket and look at people when they're there, you know. And I think it sparked my curiosity a lot about death and dying. And it wasn't until I was in college where we had to do a project on Dia de los Muertos, and I got to really understand what that meant of, you know, celebrating the people that we've lost. And you know, you traditionally create like a little altar, you have like a picture of them so that their spirits can come back to you and visit you, and you leave things that they love. They loved snacks, just any kind of reminder of their life here on Earth, so that they could come and enjoy not only the things that they loved, you know, to eat or watch or whatever, but also that they could come and spend time with their family again.
Right. And feel remembered. Right.
Yep. And feel celebrated for them. And for me, that was like really cathartic, because at the time my grandma had just passed away. And so being able to have like an altar for her and remember her felt very beautiful to me. And I'm not gonna lie, part of me was like upset, like, why didn't you teach me this? Why didn't we do this? And there was no really like big answer to that, but I would like attribute it again to that very Americanized culture of, well, we're here, we're not there. So we're gonna follow, not do, what the traditions of what it would be if we were in Mexico or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, as I've gotten older, that's something I celebrate now personally, and I do for myself. And it's still not something that my parents do, but they'll respect me and my, hey, this is my little area for this time and whatever. But yeah, that was a huge thing that I would say. I can't say that I grew up with many traditional celebrations or spiritual practices from my culture, which is kind of sad.
Gotcha. Hey, well, I'm sure that as you keep, learning and exploring, you can find ways to bring them back into your life, right?
Yep.
It's definitely like of your own choosing. What makes sense, what gives you peace, and where you find your happiness.
Yep. Switching gears a little bit. Into, have you ever been treated poorly because of your beliefs or your race?
I'm fortunate to say that it hasn't ever been physical, but definitely kind of subtexts and more implicit ways, yes. But I tend not to get again, physical is a different level of problem, but I don't really get affected so much by like verbal racism or implied racism that much anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
I assume like you've described how your folks were, not allowed to speak Spanish and stuff, right?
Yeah. Now it's like, wait, you don't speak Spanish? Yeah, you can't have this job.
Oh.
Which is funny.
Oh, the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now we get...
That's awful.
Yeah. So it's just kind of funny how that switched up. But I think there's been like a lot of experiences in my life where that has definitely either has affected me and like been a part of my upbringing. Like I said, where I grew up in the border town, there is like definitely still a huge divide between like my mom would say the train tracks, because there are actually physical train tracks that kind of divide.
Wow.
But there's definitely still the traditional like Mexican side and what people would say like the white side or the upper class basically now is kind of where that's been broken apart. And even growing up, and even a little bit now, not so much, not really anymore, maybe like when I was younger, but there was also 2 different Lutheran churches in the area, and one was seen more as like the Mexican church, and the other one was more so for the whites. And it didn't start off like that, but throughout the years it kind of turned into that, and now it's gone back to being a little definitely more accepting of anybody and everyone. But my mom is very much like, I don't care if somebody doesn't want me here, I'm gonna be here even more.
Love that.
Yeah, I am not like that. But she is very strong-willed, and so we went to the church that was seen as, you know, the white people church, and my mom was like, I don't care.
Nice.
I I can go to any church because, you know, God loves and accepts all of us. And so we went to that church, and there were definitely times where, like, they would have potlucks and stuff, and if I tried to serve myself, like, they would either look at me weird, and one time someone even said, like, don't touch that, like, your hands are dirty. And I'm like, what?
Oh.
Like, you know, having to process that as a little kid. And I knew better than to tell my mom too. I kind of laugh at this because, like I said, my mom's very she's a lot. And
Gotcha.
so I didn't tell her till we got home, and she was like, you should have told me, like, I would have told her off. And I'm like, I know you would have, that's why I didn't tell you.
Right.
But yeah, so things like that I feel like definitely occurred. Even ironically, like, right, that I'm in a border town where majority of people are Mexican. And so interesting to me that was still, like, now looking back, I'm like, damn, that was still like a issue here.
Right.
And then when I moved away, I had, like I said, I was kind of burning out with my job, and already kind of struggling with whether I wanted to be in that career or not. What pushed me, like, completely off the edge was my last year, when I was working in the school district that I was at. Technically, in the school, like, I am the only mental health expert, and behavior expert. So a lot of the times, like, I don't really have a boss within the school, but, like, my bosses are higher, like, in the education system. So my bosses are, like, central office, not tied to a specific school kind of thing. So I would go to different schools, work on different cases, and this one lady was, like, so mean to me, and to the point where, like, she would come into the office, and we shared rooms and stuff, and would say, like, oh, we're gonna go eat lunch here, whatever. And I would start, like, packing my stuff, like, oh, cool, like, I'm down, right? And she'd be like, no, you can't come with us.
Oh my god.
And I would be like, what? Why? And she was like, someone has to stay here in the office and, like, get phone calls. And I'm like, that's not my job. I don't do that. I don't pick up phone calls. And she's like, you have to stay here. And I'm like, so when am I supposed to eat? She's like, you should have brought lunch. She's like, you should have thought about that. Like, things like that were like, what the fuck? And I mean, I didn't pay too much attention. I would still just leave because, again, you're not my boss. I literally, nowhere in here in my contract does it say that I answer phone calls. And because I wouldn't listen to her, she started just trying to make my life worse and worse there. And one time she just, like, went off on me, like, just was yelling at me that I clearly don't know what I'm doing. She doesn't know where I got educated from because I clearly don't know anything about children, and that I'm an idiot for, like, messaging teachers a certain way, and just degrading me in front of other people. And I just turned around and walked into my office and started bawling, crying. And I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this anymore. Um, and it was funny because I'm very, I document everything, like everything. And it was funny because it turned out what she was yelling at me about, she had never given access to me, like to the forms that she was talking about. So like I never, what she was complaining about, it was like, well, you never let me see any of that. And so when she finally shared it with me, you can see the time and date that she shared it with me. So I'm like, girl, you just fucked yourself up.
Right.
And I complained about it to my boss and stuff, and I just was so like, it just beat me up inside, the idea of, again, everyone else who worked there was white, and the person before me was also white, and the only thing I could think of was because of my race and things that she had said, like called me lazy, and that people couldn't understand me. I'm like, bitch, I don't even speak proper Spanish. What are you talking about? And so stuff like that where I'm like, damn, you know, are just because of the way we look, you know, we're getting treated so differently, or because people look at our race or where we come from, that we're all one type of way or one type of person, is like crazy to me, that we're living in like 2023, 2021, no, 2022, and you're still being like blatantly racist like that. That's insane. So
nature leaves some creatures less evolved than others. It's it takes an exceedingly weak mind to find divides that don't exist and use that to not get along with someone.
Yeah.
So it's just a reflection of the way they are within themselves, and really doesn't say anything about the target of their hate.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, definitely have experienced those things, and like you said, like you don't, you know, get really affected by those kinds of things, but I very much so was very like affected by the things that people said. And yeah, I wish I was a little different, but I think it goes hand in hand with like my empathy, I think, of being so empathetic towards others, and like being able to feel so deeply and connected with other people, that like that energy very much so felt so real. It felt like very physical to me. And I always say, like, it's one of those things where I'm glad that I am the way that I am, because it makes me good at connecting with others and makes me a great person to help others and love other people, but it also makes me very like vulnerable to being used, I guess, or put down.
I mean, I don't know when this saying became a thing, but they say that the kindest people have seen the most pain, and you know, the silver lining is always that you know the kind of person you don't want to be, and the kind of world that you want to create for others around you, right? So that's where we are today.
Yep. I like the way you put that. But yeah, let me see. What was our other, any incorrect assumptions that people may have made about you or people you know or your culture?
Yeah, but again, I take a lot of things as a joke. Like the call centers are definitely a major thing. There's this one I've been seeing recently on the internet about something about like all Indians smelling sweaty and stuff like that. That might make it hard to find a date, right? But Yeah,
Is that what you're worried about?
Well, anyway, it's definitely unfounded, and I just feel like the videos that they see of like the few street vendors making food with their sweaty hands don't help. But there's a lot of really good stuff going on in India that never sees the light of the internet. So
yeah, that's. There's always, like you said, there's just always some people who are very close-minded and icky.
They think they have to put someone else down to get a leg up. It's not really how it works, because then you have to put down 7 or 8 billion other people. But it's definitely a lack of self-love going on there.
True. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned a little bit of like people thinking that we're lazy or like we are, my people are like dumb or slow. But again, I think a lot of that, at least like especially within like Texas or maybe even like California, that has like that border towns where there's a lot of people who come in and out. There's a lot of traffic there.
Yeah.
So people, will go into the education system only knowing Spanish and are being told to learn in English. And so to them, they look like, oh, they don't know what we're talking about. But if you were to speak in their native language, like, you would see that they're probably smarter or could be smarter than other children in the classroom. So
sure, yeah,
that's a lot of like what people don't, I guess, care to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's like how is a flower ever gonna bloom if you don't water it? And so much of like systemic, I guess, racism is about not even giving kids the opportunity to shine and assuming they won't. Like, it's just the dumbest thing ever.
Yep, agreed. Ironically and weirdly, I'm gonna go on a small side tangent.
Go crazy.
the city
Pop
I'm the city I'm living in right now, they're actually, so there's like there's always been this dual language, or like dual, what's the word I'm looking for? Bilingual like classes where they'll teach things half in English, half in Spanish. And basically, like, if you are a native Spanish speaker, you're put into those classes, and then you can kind of test out of them as the years go by. And basically, you just have to prove that you understand, comprehend, speak, can write English at a appropriate like level for your age or your grade. And you can get out of those classes. This year, they've decided to change like all of the classes that are not core classes. So like anything, like if they have like any kind of criminal justice class or like typing class or like home ec, anything like that, they all have to be in 100% both English and Spanish. So the teachers are having to teach in both English and Spanish, and they're not getting a raise for that. That's just
terrible.
Yeah. So it's that idea of like, okay, maybe they're trying to somehow like balance the scales a bit to try to help these kids like be at a better advantage, but are you really going about it in the right way? Like, you're not paying teachers more, you're not helping them, like giving them curriculum or like having someone else translate all of that. Like, you're making the teachers translate everything. Like, how does that? And also, it's for like across the board. So someone who's never spoken Spanish now is sitting in the class hearing Spanish and English. I have no clue. Like the schools right now are going crazy. Counselors.
Sounds like they kind of swept it under the carpet and checked it off as solved, but might have just left nothing better.
I don't know. I think that's crazy. So I'm kind of interested to see how this school year goes for kids, because it seems a little bit upside down.
Right.
But yeah, sorry, off topic.
Interesting to know. No. Yeah. Interesting for me to know. I only went to elementary school here, and then I came back for college. So like it's interesting keeping up with the kind of crazy and good things that happen here.
Yeah, and this is definitely just like this specific district. The surrounding ones aren't doing that. It just, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking, or who paid them is probably the better way to ask that.
Yeah.
But do you remember a time when mental health was ever talked about when you were growing up?
Yes. So as a school kid, I had, again, this is just in retrospect. I'm not bragging. I'm not putting myself down, but I had been pretty much brilliant until about 6th or 7th grade. And then everything that I'd sort of accumulated kind of just fell off. And by the time I got to high school, like I was hitting, B's and C's. I think math was my A, and then physics was decent, but the rest of my classes weren't straight A's like they were in the, lower grades. And then I looked back, I talked to some friends, I did some whatever online self-assessments and all that. And turns out like I had checked out for like every symptom of ADHD.
Oh, okay.
And, I tried to bring that up as a conversation at home, and, obviously no family will ever accept that there could be anything wrong with their precious little kid, right?
Yeah.
So kind of took like a yelling and just never brought it up again at home. But I also never like did anything with it. I kind of just found hacks that helped me still function the best I could through college. Okay. And I would submit every 11:59 assignment at 11:58.
Love that.
Yeah, and I'd have a literal month to do a philosophy paper on quantum physics. It was like this blend of like Einstein's thing and how philosophically realistic it was. We had a month to do it, and I started it 4 hours before it was due, which is nutcase behavior.
Yeah, right? I'm getting anxiety thinking about it.
But Holy. See, because to me, I put out my best work when I'm under that kind of heat.
Yeah.
And if I'd started that same paper a month before that, I would not have gotten the A- in that class.
Yeah.
So I kind of found like certain hacks at the risk of, at certain risks to still do as well as I could. And even to this day, like even at work or whatever else, I just found ways to deal with it. And I think even outside of actually doing things that require attention, my practice with meditation and yoga and all these things are definitely helping me get more controlled with putting my mind where I want it to be.
Okay.
So it's, maybe like I've never been tested or diagnosed formally, but I definitely feel like the mind is a malleable thing, and that like even unless there's a literal part of my brain chopped off, I feel like I can still keep improving with time in my life.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I think like it's a little complicated when you speak on like mental health because how do I want to word this? I guess I had both experiences of like growing up. Like you said, I was also a smart kid and very like creative, like quick learner, and but I always struggled with reading and comprehension. And my mom was a reading teacher growing up. And so early on, when I was probably in second grade, she was like, something's wrong with my daughter. I know there's something wrong with her. She's smart, but she's like struggling with reading. Like, I think she has a disability. And she made a huge deal about it because nobody wanted to test me. I was in our education system, we have something called gifted and talented.
We had that too, yes.
Okay, yeah. So the gifted and talented program, I was in that, and the school didn't want to test me for a disability because they literally said this to my mom and I: you can't be smart and dumb at the same time.
Yeah, like it would kind of, from their shallow perspective, it would mean tainting, quote unquote, their gifted and talented program, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty dumb.
And my mom was like, I don't care. My daughter can be in gifted and can get like the scores high enough to be in gifted and talented and also have a disability. So like test her. And yep, turns out I am dyslexic. But then later on also a little bit more in depth of like I have a learning disability in reading and writing as well. So you know, I grew up with that a lot, and I don't know how much I would say like that's like mental health, but I do feel like it definitely tied into mental health later because I was so smart, and like I said, I was like a person who thought more deeply. I constantly had been told that something was wrong with me and that I wasn't, you know, performing where I should be. And so I feel like it played into that idea, or that it played into those emotions of I'm not good enough. So that whole depression and everything, I don't want to blame it on that, but it was definitely a part of it. So then when I was older, and again, trigger warning for some people, definitely gonna get a little bit more darker here, so if you have any issues with depression, suicide, self-harm, I would probably stop listening for maybe the next like 5 minutes, then you can come back to us. But I would say like when I was in 8th grade, I started to have like self-harm behavior, and my freshman year I started having extreme anxiety attacks, and I would just like I would pass out, and I have really long nails, like just naturally really long nails, and I would grip my hands when I would get anxious to just kind of hold them, kind of like I was praying. Again, I grew up in like religious background, so I would like pray to try to calm myself down, but I would black out and I would come to and I would have like scratches on my hands, maybe like even a small like superficial like bleeding on my hands because I was gripping my hands so tight. And so I was having a lot of issues with that, and every time it's funny, like I felt like a trigger kind of unfolded too. Like when I would get hot, I would start to feel very claustrophobic, and it started to trigger more anxiety. Didn't help that I live in Texas and it's hot all the time.
All the time.
So it was like it started to seem super random, like that I was just constantly having anxiety attacks and blacking out and whatever. And that's when I started talking to my parents or trying to get help. And it got passed into like, oh no, you know, you're fine, just you'll be okay. Like you said, they just don't want to accept that that's a thing, which is funny because I'm like, we already know I have a disability. Like, I don't know how this is so much far different of having a learning disability to now having anxiety and struggling with this. At the time, I don't think I ever called it depression. And I was very much like, no, it's anxiety. Like, I'm having so much anxiety. It's what's wrong with me. I need help. And this ties a little bit into our next question, but I don't know if you have this, but I feel like in our culture, we always have like that one tia, that one aunt that is like super, like just a huge gossiper. Just like knows everybody's tea, tells everybody's tea to everyone, like everything. I was like threatening my mom. I'm gonna call her and tell her everything that's been happening to me, unless you get me help. Like, I need help. And she was just like, what? And I'm like, I'm gonna call her right now and tell her. And I ended up calling her and telling her, and she was like, well, you should go see a therapist and go do this. And so I started seeing a therapist and got some help that way. But
Gotcha.
I had to like kind of threaten of, no, this is how, like, I'm being so serious. You know, I'm not trying to get out of my classes or out of whatever. That was the thing too, like, oh, are you trying to get out of like the physical education stuff? Or I was in band too, so like, are you trying to get out of like having to do those physical things? Because every time I would get hot, I started to freak out. And it was like, oh, is it because you're being lazy, you don't want to like go run, or you don't want to go
the easy
march?
assumptions.
Yeah, and it was like, no, I freaking love band. Like, I love playing music. I love this part of my life. Like, I don't know what's happening to me. I can't control it. So yeah, there was a lot of pushback. And I would say it wasn't until I quit my job a couple years ago and moved back home, where I felt like I could have an honest and real conversation with my parents about mental health, because obviously they had grown up with all of that I had dealt with,
right?
But I think part of them also may have attributed it to like, oh, you're just like a kid, you know?
It's different when you come back to the same table as an adult, able to sort of reason it out with them.
Yeah. And so everything that was happening again at my job and like my burnout and stuff, again, I had a huge just breakdown, and I had a moment where I called my mom and I was like, no, I think I want to like end my life. That's how unhappy I am. And that's how not okay I am. And she was like, okay, put in your 2 weeks and we'll go pick you up on the weekend and we'll move you out and bring you back home and we'll figure it out. And I'm really grateful that now I feel like I can definitely have those honest conversations with her, even though obviously it breaks her heart when I say things like that. Sometimes I tell her, like, I just have to say it, because if I say it to you, then it's no longer like stuck within my chest or my thoughts or my feelings. Like, I just have to say it out loud. So also, like, I can hold myself accountable of, I don't want to hurt the people I love, so I'm gonna try to be as strong as I can. And at least like a practice that I also did a lot in like therapy was I would tell kids to imagine that they were putting like all their problems onto a balloon. And sometimes we would even like physically do it, like get a balloon, write down what was on our mind, and blow it up. And I would tell them to hand it to me. And while we were in therapy, I would say, while we're in here, while we're doing our stuff, or if you, during lunch, you can come and we can do it, you know, hand me what's weighing on your chest and I'll hold it for you. For
That's
even
so
if it's
sweet.
yeah, even if it's just for an hour or just for 30 minutes or 15 minutes. If you feel like you're so overwhelmed that you can't deal with life right now, come here and I will hold it. And you'll be free for a little while, even if it's just a second, and you know, we'll figure out what we can do from there. But I'm able to sit and tell my mom, like, I think I need that person right now. I need someone else to hold this for me, just even if it's just for a minute. So I'm blessed that we're in a better place.
Right.
That we can talk about those things.
Absolutely.
Because yeah.
It's more open conversation and just a willingness to listen and hear you out. Right?
Yep. And again, it's hard, like when you're a kid, like I understand. I don't blame them at all. I could see why you would think, you know, I was just trying to get out of things, or, you know, moody teenager idea. And like also looking at their past, like they had to work in the fields when they were 5-6 years old, and like I have a car at 16, crying and having anxiety attacks. Like, you know, I can see their perspectives.
But these things, the nature of these things is that you can have a whole country written off to you and still experience such things.
Yeah. No, I agree, for sure. I guess I'm just trying to say that I don't blame them for...
Right. They're growing too, right? We think maybe they've seen it, they're wise all the time, but, you know, there's things they're new to, and there's things that maybe they've gone through without labeling it the way we do and stuff like that. That definitely is a growing experience for them.
Yeah. So I'm just happy that there are a lot of people that are from previous generations that are like catching up and understanding and at least willing to like sit and learn and hear us out. Versus, you know, before I felt like we were definitely not very heard.
Yep.
And stuff. So yeah.
I hear you.
Does your culture have any like perspective on mental health or therapy?
Well, therapy is definitely a much more new thing. Mental health. So this is where we're gonna have to get like a little deep. I hope. Is there like a time pressure or anything like that?
You have me for forever if you want.
That is very sweet. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, does like the Indian culture have a perspective on mental health these days? Again, on the surface level, recently today, it's pretty much like you described. Parents really don't want to accept when their kids like in a state of depression, or most people don't understand what panic attacks are. It is in that kind of state right now. But if we dial things back, there was always this sense of trying to look at health as a whole, and the way that we had divided the system, the body, is 5 layers to the body, including the mind, which was just another layer of the body, right? Because, well, you know what? Let me ask you, where is the mind?
um, in your head.
In your head. Now, if you look at every cell of your body, it's clearly outside your head, right?
Yep. We're all it's all connected.
Right. But this thing that is outside your head, even if it is connected, it's still conducting processes that you're not consciously telling it to do, right? It's creating something new. It's, cells are being born, they're dying, they're excreting, they're producing energy, various stuff like that. And you're not like giving every single instruction, yes?
Yeah.
So we sort of looked at it at that level, and then also the level of genetic information from our ancestry, and then like do you remember your great grandfather?
No.
Right? But chances are that his nose or his mouth is probably on your face right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's a less conscious, or maybe a higher than conscious layer of the mind that's in play in how your body's functioning. So for this reason, the way our people categorized it is the mind itself is strewn throughout the physical body, and along with a bunch of other layers. We can get into that if you're interested. It sort of goes into yoga, but the physical body that you and I see when we talk to each other, like we call that the food body, which it's literally just a heap of food. When you were born, you didn't have all this, and when we die, we're gonna look different. And it's just the food that came out of the earth, and it's gonna return to the earth. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the food body. Then, like I described, the mind body is overlaid on it and giving it instructions and managing inputs and outputs, right? Wait, Feline in chat just said, I am fertilizer. That's fine.
See, I was thinking more like McDonald's, but it's fine.
Well, I guess that would make me just Subway. Every country I go to, it's just Subway.
The word I can't say. Love that.
Oh no. Listen, I will go there and popularize sandwich.
No.
Just so it's safe for you to come in and ask for whatever you want.
Thank you.
But yeah, so then you have your food body, your mind body. Then you have these vital. So if I take a person and chop their head off, right, as one does casually, right?
Yep. Just another Tuesday.
Exactly. There's gonna clearly be a difference between this person and somebody who's alive.
Yes.
Right? Even if I were to reattach every single cell, every single nerve, every single vein and artery, I would still not put that same state of being into that person the way the person next to them is.
Yeah. Okay. I'm following.
Right? So that difference, we're calling it prana, which means life energy. And it's the difference between being alive and dead. And it's that energy that enables the mind to relay instructions to the physical body. So then that's 3 layers that are interconnected and always communicating with each other. Right?
Okay.
And then there's 2 more that, we don't really need to get into. That's kind of like, less physical and harder to explain in English, but it kind of always begs the question that when we say mental health, is it really independent from physical health? Is it independent from the way your energy is functioning and what it's allowing you to do?
Yeah.
And you'll notice that I don't want to just do you want to play a quick game with me?
I'm scared, but yeah.
There's no need to be scared. I have a feeling you might be good at this. So just because of like how you've been a therapist and how you've sort of is the term psychiatrist or
no, therapist.
Therapist? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because you've been a therapist, maybe you'll be good at this game, but
I can't hit my shots. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it. It's a verbal game.
Guys, I saw him open up Valorant. I'm sorry.
Loading up aim lab.
Yeah. The coach is coming out. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done stalling.
Sorry. No, you're good. I was just grabbing some water. So try to name any kind of problem in the human experience that you can think of. And I'll try to point it back to how it's really all the same single problem.
Okay, a breakup.
A breakup, right? Mm-hmm. What about a breakup makes it problematic?
You're losing someone you care about.
If you're losing someone you care about, they're also losing you. Why do you feel sad about it?
Oh. Because they were once a part of me, like a huge part of me.
Right. So you've essentially identified yourself with something other than yourself and included it. And now when it's going away, it feels like something's being ripped out, right?
Yeah.
So you've identified with something or someone that you weren't. So now that's kind of the answer that I was going to direct everything else back to, but try to think of like a different human problem.
I don't know. Losing a job.
Losing a job. Again, so what about that is problematic?
I need money to pay my bills.
To pay your... What happens if you don't pay your bills?
I lose my shelter, my food, like other material things.
Why is that a problem? Why is losing those things a problem?
Because then I won't be able to sustain myself.
Is that part true? Because you can definitely survive, either growing your own plants or looking for food in forests, and there's definitely people who don't need shelter or have to pay for the food they eat.
Yeah, there are definitely some people who could do that.
All right. But it's possible, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely a possibility.
I'm dead, but I think you would survive.
Right. So, but that's not really the life that you would like compared to a life with shelter and food and water. But again, you're attaching this idea of you want this life over that life.
Yeah. Okay. I see that.
Right? And therefore, when you don't get the thing that you want, that's what makes it a problem. And if you want something to define your life, then you are identifying with it. You're identifying with needing to have shelter, to needing to have this kind of food over maybe an apple I pluck off a tree, right? The need for McDonald's. Like, McDonald's is my... You'll hear this. People say McDonald's is my comfort food, right? Coffee is my comfort drink in the morning. It's a part of identity that we've sort of built up. And if those things aren't available to us because we lost our job, then we're kind of cutting off a part of our identity that then makes us feel some kind of problem. Yeah. So we're identifying again with something that we're not.
I'm sorry, I'm getting roasted in chat right now.
Uh-oh.
Morbid
in the forest.
Screaming and running from everything. Coming from experience is crazy. We have never been in that scenario besides a video game, but she's probably correct. Yeah. Sorry, you lost me for a second just because I'm like, yeah, I would not live. Sorry.
It's all good. But Shiok just said, you leave coffee out of this. I will be different without it.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, connecting those things to us, making them like have more value or like a deeper connection than they necessarily have to or should.
Right. Well, should or shouldn't, like, you're the best judge. But
Yeah.
the fact is that that connection is the source of potential to suffer.
Okay.
That sense of identity existing outside what you personally are, if you identify with something that you're not, then tomorrow that transient thing could be gone, and then you'll feel the pain of it. So this is the timeless teaching, the eternal way, right? That my culture has had, where if I'm not the coffee that I drink in the morning, if I'm not the car that I drive, if I'm not the family that I have, if I'm not the friends that I, love so much, if I'm not my lover, if I'm not my whatever, what am I?
Okay, I'm about to have an existential crisis.
This is good. This is how this is how they spent 60,000 years conquering mental health.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you kind of bring this up. I don't know if I want to go like super into like deep thought about that, but definitely feel like I'm gonna think about this and probably send you thoughts later.
Go for it. It's not an easy question. And what am I is something that, obviously my culture talks in lifetimes, not just in decades and months and years, but whether lifetimes exist or not is something we have to find out for ourselves. But it's the idea that, what am I is not something that just happens to you overnight. If you take away everything that you think you are today and look at what's left, that's going to be your answer. But it takes so much effort and time to do that.
Yeah, I think part of, again, like that burnout that I was experiencing was me asking myself kind of that question of who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Is it worth losing myself to be wealthy? I think was like a big question that I was having.
So then tying to like your values or your morals?
Yeah, more tying to my values, my morals, but also like my own personal protection, because again, like we kind of talked about like that empathy side of me. So it makes me very good at my job, and I definitely helped a lot of people, but at what cost? What was I losing from myself? That pain day in and day out of like I gave that example of like carrying that weight for those kids. There came a point where it wasn't like I gave that weight back to them, but part of me kept it and would think about it. And well, I only have a student for 8 hours, like, are they gonna survive the night?
Right.
I made a CPS call, but are they gonna check on them tonight? Are they gonna check and find nothing, and then now the kid's gonna be in more danger? Or even the idea of like, kids moving, or parents taking them somewhere else, and not knowing, are they safe? Are they okay? Like I cared about that person, and now I have no idea of who they are, where they're at, or if someone's caring about them or knows how to help them. Now they're going to start from zero, somewhere else. So it was all of those thoughts that started to just weigh heavy on myself, and wasn't healthy at all for me. So then trying to understand, okay, well, I have to accept that this probably isn't a good place where I should be, I might be doing good and I'm getting
But
paid well.
But you feel the toll of it. You feel like it's creating a burden that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's look back at, who am I? What should I be? What should I do? Yeah.
So, forgive me, but the what am I question, I kind of want to poke it deeper than where you've left it with what is this profession, or what is this endeavor rather, because it's what you were doing is a noble endeavor. It's helping special needs kids get what they need, right? So you've kind of left it at what is this costing me personally, but I kind of want to poke further and ask, who are you as a person? What does morbid the person mean? Again, if this is something you'd rather pick up later, then I'm all for it. But while we're here, I just thought I'd ask the next level.
Yeah, no, you're good. I guess it's hard because obviously, like you said, it's something I think that kind of changes often. And
okay.
I don't know if I like the answer that I would give, because I still feel like I'm trying to figure stuff out. And I think even my answer would still kind of tie back to the person that maybe people wanted me or want me to be, I guess. So I would sit here and say, well, morbid is a helper, someone who is here to care for others, and someone I feel like I'm here to, I guess, like, connect with people.
So helper, cares for others, and connects with people.
Yeah.
So would you say that Mother Teresa is also morbid?
Well, shoot. No.
Right? Exactly. So I guess the same, if I were to paraphrase that same counter question, it's, are you defined by what you do? Or is there something even deeper than that, or at a higher level than what you're actually doing in the world, that makes you morbid or makes you you?
Yeah. I think that that's part of, like, my problem, that I look at myself as I'm trying to how do I word this? I looked at myself for so long and, like, defined myself so long by what I was doing. I was, like, so tied to my profession and who I was to the people there, that part of me felt like I lost all sense of my identity, and all I was like I said, that caregiver, that support system for other
purely
people.
Defined by, like, who you are in others' eyes, right?
Yeah.
Based on what you're doing for them.
Yep. And so I guess that's why I kind of prefaced with, I don't know if I would like the answer I would still give you now, because
Gotcha.
I don't think that I've fully worked through breaking that apart or figuring, like, trying to go back to figure out who I am without my job. But again, I think that, like, in a way, somewhat also ties back to, like, those, our culture and, like, that idea of, like, having to be an extremely, like, hard worker. You know, like, I grew up with my parents, like I've said, like, working in the fields and stuff since they were little. So in their eyes, they were like, you have to do better than us. You have to go to college. You have to get a higher education than we did. You have to have a better paying job. Like, the number matters on your paycheck because you have to do more. And also, which we didn't really talk about, because I definitely want to do another podcast about this with some of the girls with Xzile, but also, like, being a woman. Like, throwing that.
Yeah, I'm game.
Throwing that card in there of that idea that you have to try harder because at least my mom always instilled, like, you have to do more and try more and push more because you're brown and you're a woman. And so I was in college while I was in high school. I finished my bachelor's in 3 years. I graduated, like, let's say on a Friday, and I started grad school on Saturday. Like, and then I finished grad school. I got my job. Like,
just back to back.
Yeah, I did while I was still in grad school, I was doing an internship full time and then got hired. And that was the first time I ever had, like, a summer to myself, because even from, like, 8th grade, I wanted to be an engineer at first. So in 8th grade, I was
twinsies.
Yeah, I lost that really quickly. Don't worry.
Okay.
Sorry. But
gotcha.
I wanted to be an engineer because I wanted to build stuff. I thought, like, I don't know, that'd be kind of cool. And so I started doing that in 8th grade, and every summer up until my junior year of high school, I was going to college classes, like a college program, to basically, like, they were training their future, like, engineering program. So we would go do, like, summer camp kind of stuff, but it was with professors and with other college students. And so I did that, and I didn't really have a break until I got a full-time job. And the only reason I got a kind of break was because I worked in the education system. And obviously when the kids are not in school, I can't work. So I had a summer off. And so I think that, like, that tie, like, into that idea of, like, that my job is my identity was so, like, tied into me because of my culture and my upbringing of
and the pressures imposed as part of the expectations from your parents.
Yeah, that's, like, your value. And even still now, sometimes
I'm being told to give you a head pat, so
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, chat. But yeah, that the head pat threw me off, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. No, it's okay. What was I gonna say? I don't remember. It was a lie. That's what my grandma used to say. If you were gonna say something and you forgot it, it was a lie.
No. Mine would say, if it's important, it'll come back. So.
Yours was more positive than mine was. But yeah, no, just that whole idea of Like, I definitely lost, I think, myself. Oh, okay, I remember now. See?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
Even now, like, so I quit my job almost 2 years ago, and I've been just trying to figure out what I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
There came a point recently where the similar job opened up in our local area, and my mom was like, you should apply, and you need a job, and you can still be looking for something different, but maybe things will be different here. It's not like a big city like it was where you were, and all this stuff, and went on and on about how I was perfect for the position, like I'm so good at what I do, and all of these things. And like, I had to sit there and like, I never told her, but in my head I was just thinking, like, I feel like I'm taking steps back by applying for this and doing this interview, and I can sit here and talk about all these things, but I feel like a robot. I feel like a shell of like maybe who I was a few years ago, but this doesn't connect with me anymore. And I didn't end up getting the job, and part of me was relieved.
Yeah.
Because, I still want to figure out, I want to find myself a little bit more than going back to, well, the paycheck or whatever. And it was good money. Trust. I do miss that, but it's fine. I can survive.
Right.
Maybe
you
not.
Got the
maybe not
forest
pulling,
option.
Yeah, not pulling the apples off the tree. Survive. Like, GG's on that one, chat. Like, I will say, but yeah, I'm fine. I still get my coffee. We're good.
Yes.
Gotcha. But yeah. Damn, that was deep.
It was, and well, if I could just sort of like talk about how I've sort of started going down that path.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I love it.
So yeah, so the premise given to me initially by culture and then by my own critical thinking later is I'm suffering because I don't know the nature of my existence, right? So like for a while now, every night when I go to bed, I picture putting aside everything that I identify with myself. And yes, it could be job, it could be what I'm doing, it could be what I mean to people. I put all that aside because those are things that have built up over time. When I was born, that stuff wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right? So then I'm like, all right, so what was there when I was born? And then I looked at my body, right? And I was like, this body was not like this when I came out the womb. Right? Surely, I would hope not, because that's terrifying for any mother. So definitely that means I've accumulated this body, which means I have this body. I can only have an accumulation. I can't be an accumulation. Right? I can have my chair and my desk that I've accumulated with spending money on them, but I can't be my chair and desk because that's insanity.
Yeah.
I can't be my car even though I like it. So if I'm not this body, am I somewhere inside the body? And then I started trying to think through, like, would I be in my head? Would I be like in my heart where the soul is poetically supposed to be? And then like I started looking through like people that have had open heart surgery, what happens to their souls?
Yeah.
So just absolutely targeting everything that I thought I have been for the last 20 something years. And I've sort of come to this point where I'm like, I really can't see a way that I'm either the body or the mind. The mind, because the mind is also an accumulation. It's just, as far as I see it, it's a sum of the memories that I've collected and a sum of possibilities or imaginations of what I can reassemble those memories as. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if I'm getting stuck in like a loop with my memories, then we call that trauma or depression. If I'm getting stuck in a forward loop with my imagination, we call that anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At a very just outside in level, at a very fundamental level, like I was okay with these definitions. And I'm like, so if I'm not the mind or the body, then what am I? And so I've gone through several years of that quest, and I'm sure I'm going to keep doing it for till the end of my life, probably. But that's kind of where I am, as like I'm nothing that I think has been me for the last 20 years.
Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah. I've grown comfortable with it, but initially, like, I did feel like the scared factor.
Yeah.
So you tell me, like, if you know, come to like an answer for yourself, like, let me know. I'd love to pick this back up.
If I find the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, I think it's something we'll ask ourselves for a long time.
Yes. But definitely the answer's got to be there, right? Because mental health only exists at the level of the mind. And if I'm not the mind, then I need to put some distance between me and the mind. Therefore, all my mental health problems go away. It's just logically trying to chip at it step by step or bit by bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm at that like stage of trying to heal and like maybe not necessarily find an answer, but find a direction.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a fantastic way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, because like I said, I think it changes. I think we change, our environment changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, our physical, our mental, all of those things just are constantly changing.
Yes.
But I know personally, I feel like I have to heal a lot of things before I can continue, or else it
might be too much at once.
I think it'll just keep coming up. You know?
Gotcha.
And then I'll just keep repeating this cycle of, I don't know what to call it, but
just kind of feeling defined by what's expected of you.
Yeah.
Sort of, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely feel like I'm trying to. I know I've healed a lot of things, but I don't want to fall back into old or bad behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, finding a good direction to go in, I think, is more of like where I'm at.
Absolutely. For me, it was kind of the flip side. Starting in this direction, like I don't have all the answers yet, but starting in this direction is actually what ended up healing me through like some of my absolute lowest points.
Yeah.
Because I was, school was not great socially and, mentally. I did not feel welcome at all. And on top of that, I had gone through some major injuries playing the sports that I loved and I had hoped to play for life. And having these, I had always wanted friends, never got any in school. I had always wanted sports, and now I can't play them ever. Yeah. And I was on the hospital bed after the surgeries, and I was like, what the heck am I anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, am I just some loser without friends, without sports, without any, he's just going to study college somehow and get some lame job and die.
Yeah.
Being an insignificant life. Or am I actually something that's beyond these definitions of what am I doing and, what is my body, what is my mind? So that kind of, this direction helped me heal that kind of absolute despair and agony of existing, physically and mentally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a long way to go. There's still things, compulsions and sadnesses that I suffer, but I'm sure that they're going to keep decreasing the further I go in answering this question of what is my nature.
I feel like you need the head pat now. Do you mind me asking what sport?
So I used to play badminton. I used to do swimming, like competitively, and then soccer. I was on the school team. So
nice.
And of the three, like soccer, school team, that was great. But badminton, I had really hoped to like get to tournaments and get some trophies.
Yeah.
And even before that, like I was pretty big on taekwondo as a kid. And now I can't really do most martial arts to the level where you can actually compete with them. I can barely do basic forms, but I can still hit the gym. So at least most things in the gym that I want to do.
Yeah.
But aside from that, not much else.
Well, I see where that like competitive nature comes from.
Yeah. I hear that most competitive esports players used to just, play sports and they had some injury or some defining moment that just made them switch over.
Yeah. Even that like coaching side as well, I could see.
Yeah. I anything that I've learned, I am responsible to shape the future of, is how I feel.
Love that. I guess I feel that in a sense of like why mental health is so big in like our esports org when we're gaming and we have competitive teams and creators, but I would feel horrible if I didn't share my knowledge. I have whole degrees for it, and then I just sit on it and do nothing. I would feel not great.
Yeah. As one of my teachers says, if you don't do what you can't do, there's no problem at all. But if you don't do what you can do, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that, you're like sort of actualizing yourself with whatever you've accumulated and putting it to use even in a space that you wouldn't connect at first, because gaming is so surface level, right? Just yell at the guy, GG, go next. But the mental aspect is a huge part that we do need to address and preserve and grow.
Oh yeah. In our this one's not part of your contract, I don't think, but like in our competitive player contracts, there is a section where I talk about you have to make sure that you're mentally and physically healthy, and you have to take care of yourself, because if you're coming into a competitive environment and you're not okay physically or mentally, then it's only going to bring bad energy.
Got it. So what you're saying is, because it's not in my contract, I can go commit minor federal crimes like I've always wanted.
Yep, that's what I said.
Yep.
Someone clip it. Like, well, my boss said there's a clip on Twitch, I swear.
Yup. It wasn't even me.
But yeah, no, that's definitely huge. Like one of the bigger, I guess, reasons why I want to do these things and have these podcasts and talk about things, because I would feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't. And I'm just glad that there's so many people that resonate with that and like gravitate towards the org because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
by... If you remember, that's one of the first things that stood out to me about the org is like I'd seen like several orgs come and go, and some of them had asked me to join as well before Xzile, but Yoshi was already here. No,
they're hitting your line.
I'm not trying to say.
I'm just kidding.
Well, one is Yoshi was here, so this org was Yoshi cleared, and what Yoshi likes, we all like. That's.
I don't know if I would say all of that.
Okay, all right. And most things, we'll dial back to most. But then the second thing is mental health, and that being an overlooked aspect that I think you guys picked up on really well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's at least like a lot of like our staff or like content creators have always said that they really enjoy that part of the org, and I think like, I mean, obviously for the competitive players, they're thinking more of like their team and whether or not they have a coach or a manager to kind of help them with stuff. But I think then with time being around and like seeing all of the stuff that we get to do, or even like joining me and being a part of these conversations, then they start to really like appreciate that part of the org. So I'm really happy that people are willing to come on and talk to me about things, because that's also like hard to talk about mental health and like be open or vulnerable about it.
Yep.
And I mean, just like you, like I sent you questions beforehand, like I do that pretty much with everyone. Send questions, and if there's feedback or no, I don't want to talk about that, right, we kind of pivot and change some things.
Sure. Yeah.
But even like being okay with talking about those things, I just respect all of you so much more too, that you all would sit and talk to me about these things. So it's super important. And if we can start a conversation.
I just did a little namaste towards the camera. I wish my PNG had a thingy, but
yeah. I think just like starting the conversation is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
But love you guys too. Let's see. What? I guess like our last question that I had written down, we've gone on the huge
yeah
tangent.
A little side quest.
Yep, it was great. I loved it.
Yep.
But I mean, I guess we kind of talked about it, like what are some of the things that our culture does that helps with mental health.
Yeah, I guess it's an extension of the previous thing, like you said, but if we get to like the cultural level of it, being able to answer what am I, and not just intellectually, but experiencing the full nature of what you are beyond the body and the mind, that's what we call enlightenment.
Yeah.
So, and that potential, as the culture has preserved it and, taught it through time, is within every single human being. It's just a matter of the environment and then what practices they do to help them towards understanding themselves. So, one of the paths towards that is meditation, and within that there's like 112 different ways you can do it. And then you also have like yoga practices that help shape your body and your mind at the same time, and also use your breath and different factors in sort of elevating your ability to perceive um, your inner self, and
Yeah.
not just seeing with your eyes, but also just feeling out everything that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, like that's kind of the what you can do aspect of the culture to get over all this mental health stuff and then answer that question. But there's also things like the faith component, which gets converted to religion. That's another way that gives a lot of people comfort and pulls them away from mental health troubles.
Mm-hmm.
um, Maybe it's less direct about what am I and more like what can I hold on to,
Yeah.
right? But then there's also the path of sciences, and understanding the universe. And once you grasp the scale of the universe, then my culture says you notice how small you are and how small your problems are in the context of freaking stars and galaxies burning through eons, right?
Yeah.
So that perspective shift that comes with science is another one. And then finally, the last one is selfless action.
Mm.
If you sort of chip away at your sense of self, then all the mental problems that are associated with that sense of self also go away. It stands to reason. So, just throwing yourself into charity work and stuff like that without asking what's in it for me, what's happening to me, it's way harder to do than it is to be said, but
Yeah.
like it's definitely a path to, you know, ending your mental suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
love
there's
that.
so many. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I really love all of that.
Yeah. And to illustrate like these foundational building blocks of life, there's this huge plethora of myths and stories and gods and demons and heroes and legends that embody these traits or methods or paths to ending their own suffering and realizing how to be joyful all the time.
Yeah. Um for me, I don't know if I have like I guess when I was like writing this question, a lot of what came to mind for my culture was family and like
Mm-hmm.
this sense of belonging and this idea of never being alone. Um, because my culture is very family oriented and very much so like leaning on each other
Mm-hmm.
and having this idea that uh, you're never really by yourself or alone. You always have
Mm-hmm.
people that you can depend on to be there no matter what the circumstances are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like for example, where I live right now, um, my neighbor to my left is my aunt, and then
Uh-huh.
across the street
Is that the
there's
one that you kind of threatened to bring in with the big guns?
no, not her. Uh,
Okay.
but there's an aunt there. There's my my grandma used to live across from us. I have two uncles that are also across from me, and two aunts that are pretty much like across from our house too. So like this whole like
Mm-hmm.
cul-de-sac, or really like this whole road, is full
Uh-huh.
of somebody I'm related to, a cousin,
That is
an
so
aunt,
nice.
yeah, a grandma, like. And if we're not related, like we grew up, like their
Wow.
families grew up very close to us. So,
That's very sweet.
yeah. So like you always have this sense of like connection. Um and I definitely think that that was part of maybe part of my problem when I moved away. Of I didn't have that when I moved
Mm-hmm.
away. Um and even though I enjoy my alone time and not being like literally I can't leave without someone calling and being like, "Oh, she's going out again?"
Ah,
So there's a
the
little bit of,
helicopters.
yeah, there's a little bit of that, but I think, they mean well.
Yeah,
For the
for
most
sure.
part. Some of them just want to know, what are you doing, huh?
Just nosy like that.
Yeah. But I didn't have that when I left. So then when things started to become a problem for me, I didn't have anyone physically to like lean on. Or to go, you know. Like, this is probably bad for me to admit, but I could literally walk across the street right now and go into my aunt's house, and she probably wouldn't even notice that I was there for like an hour or two. Oh. Like, they just still leave their doors unlocked. Like, it's just very much like, we're all family here, so you can just come in, eat my food, and go, and I wouldn't even care, you know?
Right.
So the fact that I didn't have that, like, I had it my whole life, and then I moved away, didn't have it, and things started to go bad for me, it was like, I don't know how to help myself. I don't know what to do. So part of that, like, moving back and having that realization of, well, I may not like that I live in a smaller place, or like a city that I feel like is kind of behind on everything, like fashion, just thought processes, education, like all of that. Opportunities even are, I think we're kind of behind on all of that. I don't know if I can't replace this connection that I have here.
Sure, yeah.
At least not now, I don't think. But yeah, I think that when I was thinking of like what does my culture do for anxiety or sadness or other like problems, I feel like we very much so are open to leaning on each other.
Strong family support system, right?
Huge. Yeah.
I definitely think that's shared within like my culture, and most Asian cultures are strong on the family system. In fact, it's pretty wild, only these days, because we're learning it from the West. The whole thing about moving out at 18.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's never been a thing for us. We've grown up with 3 generations in the same roof.
Yeah.
We had this huge house, like, in a farm, and have every generation just live there and keep passing it on to the next. And now we're, like, in these little tiny, nuclear families? Is that what they're called?
I've never heard that.
Okay, yeah, it's just like, boop. All right, 4 people, go live in your own house, move out, go get a degree and work and take care of yourselves, right?
Yeah.
But in rural parts of India, you'll see several generations just coexisting and leaning on each other and just kumbaya, you know?
Yeah. I laugh because we make fun of one of my cousins. Like, make fun of him, but it's like playful, kind of like he's 46, 47 maybe, close to 50, and he's never been married, still lives with his parents, and we laugh at him, you know, like, well, why would you move out? You just stay there forever. You're happy, you know?
Yeah. But that kind of raises the counter scenario. Sadly, you know, I have several friends with this issue where their parents aren't that support system that we would hope for.
Yeah.
And for them, it becomes quite the inverse, that they have to move out at 18. Otherwise, their lives and everyone's lives are just more and more miserable by the year.
Yep.
So it's sad, but kind of a flip side of the same coin.
She-Hulk saying me.
No.
Coffee saying me. Yeah. No, it's true. That's like how they were raised at At 18, man, you gotta figure that out on your own. You gotta pay for your bills. You gotta, if you want a car, you gotta go pay for that. You want a phone, you have to go figure out how you're gonna do that on your own. And even when I was going to like quit my job, some of my cousins who are, I guess, more Americanized or have taken on more of like the Western, I guess, culture of living, had told me like, you're not worried you're gonna be a burden for your parents. And I sometimes that thought still plays in my head, and my mom would be the first one to tell you like, you can never, you know, she could never be a burden to me ever. My mom okay, this is kind of embarrassing. I lived 3 hours away when I went to college for my grad school. My mom would visit me every weekend.
Dang.
She would drive.
That's not embarrassing. That's sweet.
I had to tell her, please, like, I want to like go out and have like a social life. She's like, I'll be in the hotel, it's fine. I'm like, girl,
take me with you.
Yeah, I'm like, we gotta like have some boundaries here. And you know, then when I moved even further away, I was 6 hours away. She would go every other weekend.
Oh, proportional.
And it was like, also to preface, I'm an only child, so you know, there's also a little bit of that, but
gotcha.
It's one of those things where my mind can't even like fuck with me in that sense of, am I a burden to them? Because no, like they have always been here to support me and help me in any way that they can. Right. And I 100% agree with you. Like, I don't even understand how parents are like that towards their kids. Of, you're 18, you're out, buddy.
Yeah. Like, the intention is different from the execution. I feel like the intention could be, you know, you need to be strong enough to rely on yourself in the world. And that is fantastic, but it needs to be taught with this sense of compassion and not like you are an unwelcome presence under my roof. Right?
They're like celebrating, like, oh, I can't wait to what I'm gonna turn your room into. Like,
yeah, like, come on. I grew up here, man.
Yeah, this was my space. She-Hulk said. My dad said I had to go to college or join the military, so I got married instead.
Holy. I mean, honestly, yeah, it's either get a job or get married and move out.
Guys, she loves him, okay? He's great. She's great. She's happy. Don't worry. She-Hulk's fine.
Blink twice.
No, she's fine. She's good.
Yeah, it's just horrible execution of a good intention, I just feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Yep.
But
Feline just said, in this economy, leaving at 18.
Right?
It's horrible. It's insane to get a job. Like, I'm a CS major. CS degrees were in style or whatever because of the number of jobs just a few years ago. And now there's nothing.
Yeah.
Every company is just full to the brim with talent, and like trying to find work is nuts right now.
Yep. I have 2 degrees, several certifications and different things, and have not been able to find a full-time job in a year and a half. Well, we'll say a year. A half a year I was a little lost. it's fine. But yeah, it's crazy.
So brings us back to that question of how do we stay joyful regardless of whether we have these things, jobs or whatever.
Yep.
Can't identify with something we're not.
Yeah. Well,
with that being said, Morbid, it's almost EP time because I do wake up pretty early, so
no,
any closing thoughts or anything you want to talk about?
Just thank you for having this great conversation with me. I appreciated it so much, and I'm sure everyone in both of our chats appreciated listening to us rant on about our culture and mental health. I'm very glad that, we got to sit down and do this. And anyone who's listening, just know that you are loved, you're valued, you're cared for. If you ever need any type of resources or places to turn to for mental health support, you can either talk to me or join the Discord, because we do post resources in there, or even like on our Twitter, occasionally we tweet out resources of where you could seek help for actual therapy, or like group places to help you with anything that you're going through. And I hope that, you're able to join us again for really deep, meaningful conversations like this. If there's ever anything that you guys want us to talk about, you can always let me know as well. And if I don't know the answer to it, I'll figure out the answer, or I'll find someone who can better explain things. And we'll sit and, deep dive into any kind of topic y'all are interested in. World Mental Health Day is on the 10th, so make sure you're checking in on yourself and the people around you to make sure that they're okay. And if they ever need, like I said, anything, you reach out to us and we'll try to at least send you in the right direction if we don't have the answers for you. But yeah, I appreciate you.
That was lovely.
Thank you. I almost said it without breathing.
Yeah, that's isn't there like I don't know, there was a rapper with like this whole breathless verse. I don't remember the name.
Oh, no clue.
Yeah. Should get into rapping, Morbid.
I don't know if anybody wants that, but my first song will be the word I don't say. Just over and over again.
Sandwich.
Yeah, She-Hulk's one of the ones who makes fun of me. Just gonna throw her under the bus. But yeah, well, thanks again. You have a good night. I'm gonna stay on for a little bit and rant about cool events we have coming up this month. But yeah.
All right then. I will.
Thank you.
We'll check out. And yeah, before I go, I want to say this has been such a meaningful chance for me to. It's not often that I get to talk about this kind of stuff online, but I'm just so glad for giving me this channel to discuss this with you. And it was a real pleasure. You were such a wonderful host, and I do hope that we pick up on that "What am I" thing at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will.
But thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure for me.
Of course. You have a good night.
You take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Alright, chat. Yeah, bruh. Wait, why is my thing not... Can you guys hear me? Hello. I know you guys can hear me. I don't know why my Discord's not working. Pause. Hello? Okay, there. Um, but yeah, that was so good, wasn't it? I am so sorry I missed a lot of your comments and questions. I don't think there were so many questions, but I missed a lot of the comments, so I do apologize. I do appreciate your input. Everyone in chat with like all your comments here towards the end, and then there was a lot of people at the beginning too that had a lot of great things to say. So I appreciate all of you for being here. Let me see what spoilers I can pull up for you all. Let's see, we don't have any events written up there. But, ooh, I know it. Okay, chat, if you guys don't know, in October we do a lot of fun things that we got going on. Thank you, She-Hulk. One of the huge ones that we do is spooky, scary movie nights. Here, I'll share my screen. Maybe if I take this off. There you go. We do have some spooky nights coming up. So if you're interested in scary movies, you can see here that we have a whole list of movies coming up in October. Every Sunday at around 6 p.m. Yeah, 6 p.m. Central Time, we will be running scary movies. So earlier in the day, we'll post and you guys can vote between these two movies. So on Comedy Weekend, we'll have Final Girls and Shaun of the Dead. I'm guessing that's a spin-off of Dawn of the Dead? I don't know. I'm horrible with scary stuff. You will not catch me in the spooky movies, okay? Just saying this here first of all. Rod makes me watch one, so I might come for the comedy night because I will agree to one scary movie. But yeah. We'll see which one I show up to. But so we have our spooky nights kind of listed out, but we do a lot of like pickup scary nights, so movie nights. So throughout the month there will be movies happening all the time. Make sure to stay connected and see what's going on and what we're doing on our Discord. We also have our Coven team participating in a lot of tournaments this month. So if you want to watch them, you can come join a watch party. We might do some live on Twitch, but some of them might just be streamed in Discord as well. So if you're interested in watching our all-women's Overwatch competitive team, you can come hang out and watch them and support them. They played today and they did great. Very proud of them. Sneak peek! I haven't decided which graphic I like yet, but I think I'm going with this one. We will be running an Overwatch tournament this month. The announcement officially is going to go out on the 5th of this month, so there's still a couple of days before we officially announce, but we will be doing an Overwatch tournament for the month of October, and I'm super excited. We found some of these spooky looking graphics for Reaper, which is really cool, and Halloweenish vibe. So yeah, definitely stop by and participate in our Overwatch tournament. I think the rest up there are birthday stuff. We will also be doing like a girls' night and things like that, so you know, just stay tuned for what we got going on. Again, I appreciate every single one of you for hanging out and vibing with me. It means the world to me that we're able to hang out and do some fun activities. It looks like we have a couple of friends who are live. We have what are these guys doing? We have some of my newer friends. We have Clumsy, Joey, Haterade, and Wolfie all streaming VR chat. Are they just... They're just chatting in VR chat? Love that for them. But we also have Bad Wolf streaming some scrims. So we'll go ahead and raid Bad Wolf. I think Bad Wolf is ending stream. Oh, is he ending stream? Let me open up his stream to go see. Oh, yep, he did end stream. Bad Wolf ended stream. What are they doing in VR chat?
When Julio was doing his appreciation cards on New Year's, and he like...
I think they're just vibing. But we also have Mike and Cheddar live as well that I can see. We can go ahead and send a raid over to Mike. Oh, I'm opening up all the wrong things, chat. I swear, dude, every time I do this, I start the raid off on my own channel, or I try to, and I'm just not on my channel. Alright. Looks like Mike is playing Phasmophobia, so we'll send over a raid to him. He is one of our mods, so make sure you go send some love and support to Mike. Again, we appreciate you guys. We'll be live soon. I'm not sure exactly when, but stay up to date in the Discord to see when we go live again with some more fun events. But yeah, you all have a good night. I appreciate you. Shout out Rohit. If you don't follow him, make sure to follow him at They Took Rohit on Twitch. But yeah, love you all. Have a good night. Bye-bye, friends.